All right. Good afternoon, everybody. We are delighted to announce that we have the CEO, founder and CEO of FranChoice. FranChoice is, in my personal opinion, I'm a little biased, I think, the Cadillac of the, or should I say, the Tesla, or whatever the car of choice you have, of the franchise brokerage slash consultant community. We have been great partners, strategic partners with FranChoice in the past. Jeff Elgin has been in the industry as an icon in franchising. We are so delighted to have you here, Jeff. So thank you so much for taking your time today, and love to hear, if you don't mind, kind of give a little description or background of what you've been doing for the last 30 plus years in the franchise industry, and we'll get everybody up to speed before we move forward with the interview.
Sure. My wife told me I should stop using dates about when I started because it's so long ago that a lot of people that hear it weren't born then. But I
Right.
did start in the franchise business back in the 80s as a multi-unit franchisee at first. I started as a franchisee, and then a few years later went to work for a franchisor running their franchise development organization, helping to recruit new franchisees. And did that with two or three companies, and then was recruited to come back to Minneapolis and go to work with a company called Great Clips, where I spent most of the 90s working with a fabulous team of people building a huge company in the haircutting business. And then when I left there toward the end of the 90s, I was really interested in this business model of trying to help people find a great franchise, because I dealt with so many people at Great Clips who were absolutely wonderful people and would make fabulous franchisees, but they just didn't match up with our particular franchise very well. And so I wanted to create an environment where you had so many choices that you could work with that it was easy to find a few companies out of the mix that would match up pretty well with people. So that's where FranChoice came to be. And we founded the company, ran a prototype office and tested systems for a year or so, and then officially founded the company in April of 2000. So we just passed our 20th anniversary, and during those 20 years have placed literally thousands and thousands of new franchisees and probably 25,000 franchise agreements in total.
Unbelievable. And I know, if not every single person, probably 90% of your entire team, which I'm glad to say, because we've built a good part of Hand and Stone on the backs of the relationships of the franchise consultants. Jeff, as you mentioned, you have led teams and organizations for pretty much your entire career. I don't know that we've ever seen anything like the situation that we've seen here recently with this COVID-19 situation in the United States, specifically to speak of. You being a leader of an organization, can you give us some insight on or comparison of how you're leading your organization today versus how you have in the past when a pandemic wasn't in our midst?
Well, sure. I think, we've had times before where we had perfect storms hit us, where a number of things that we took for granted in the business kind of went out the window at the same time. And it's always challenging to figure out how to deal with them. And what's different in this situation is because of the pandemic, there's a great deal of personal fear, personal safety fear. And normally the fear and anxiety that people feel when they're thinking about starting their own business is primarily financial in nature, or it's ego driven. What if I fail? I'm going to be embarrassed or something like that, or I'm going to lose
Sure.
money. In this, the fear and anxiety is driven more than anything else by personal safety issues. What if I get this coronavirus, and what's going to happen to me, and things. And whenever something happens to cause a general level of fear and anxiety to increase dramatically and rapidly in the marketplace, then that tends to be a real negative influence on getting results in franchise development until it settles down and people get used to it. Now, conversely, whenever unemployment starts exploding, that's generally very, very good for our business, because it puts a whole lot of a lot more talented, well-educated business people out looking for something to do and thinking, boy, I don't want to keep going through layoffs or downsizing or furloughs or any of this stuff again. I want to get some control of my destiny. So right now there are things that are positive factors underlying our business. There are things that are negative factors underlying our business, and more than anything else, I think it's just the uncertainty that is causing all of us to wonder what's it all going to look like in a while when it sort of starts shaking out.
That's a great segue. I love the kind of the philosophy behind it. It's a great segue to my next question, which is, one of the things we have been certain of is I can count on and set the clock to the calendar of the year. Every January and every July, there's this great event that takes place, and Nicole can attest to this in our lives, and it's getting together with our friends at FranChoice. I had made mention of the fact that I was talking to one of your consultants, Kim Daly, about the fact that it was a summer event and we were in the Stone Mountain, Georgia area, and I said, you know what, this is like coming to summer camp. It really doesn't feel like work. So when I look at my history with the FranChoice people and yourself and your team, I've kind of raised my kids along with these people that are parents, that we talk about where they go to high school. Are they playing sports? Do they have a boyfriend or a girlfriend? Now it's where they go into college. With some of us, it's, hey, who's getting married? They have grandchildren, right? This July might present a problem, and I don't know if there's a cat left out of the bag yet, but I mean, we're all concerned. Hey, is that July event going to happen? And how does that present issues to you as a leader and to your management team about how to handle a situation like that, when really we are very dependent on having that face-to-face twice a year?
Well, it's an important question. And as you know, or probably aware, we surveyed all of our customers, our franchisor customers, business partners, and our consultants a couple of weeks ago to talk about their feelings in terms of trying to get together in person in July in Nashville. And everybody universally said, we love the meetings and we love getting together. This is a relationship driven business, and we form and we reinforce those relationships when we get together in person, and not just in the business meetings, but breaking bread and having a chance to relax and visit with one another. But what we also heard loud and clear was that people were very unsure about how safe it was going to be to travel and get in close proximity, even with social distancing policies being followed in that short of a time frame. And because of that, and I totally understand. I mean, we have consultants who have their parents living with them that are old enough, and they're scared about going and getting some kind of infection and bringing it back, and things like that. And we just don't want to put anybody in that position. So we are going to do a virtual meeting in July rather than go to Nashville. We're going to do it the FranChoice way. We're going to have some fun. There's going to be tons of intimate and semi-intimate interaction between franchisors and consultants in a number of different formats, and to not only drive knowledge, but frankly also to drive the relationships and continue to build on what has made us so strong in the past, as you mentioned yourself, and we'll have some fun with it too. So you'll be seeing announcements on that next week or two, and but I can let the cat out of the bag. We're going to go virtual at this meeting just to keep everyone safe.
Gotcha. Well, if there's a FranChoice event, there's a lot of FUN to be had. I can tell you that personally. Nicole, did you have something to add?
I was going to say, we could put your green screen to work, Bob, and he could be riding a bull for you guys, Jeff. So Bob has a full setup there, so I think we could utilize this to your advantage for sure.
Our last Hand and Stone conference was in Nashville, and I did ride a bull, and I assure you, no one wants to see it. That I can guarantee.
I have the video, though. I have the video to prove it.
Right.
We like those bull riding events.
Jeff, I'm sure, knowing you, that you've built so many relationships over the course of your career, and you guys deal with, my God, food, fitness, personal services, financial services, storage, personal storage, hair salons, massage and facial spas, etc. You probably talk to, I don't know how many people a week, but I'm sure you're on the phone all the time with the leaders of organizations as well as people in the IFA. With your conversations and your experiences that you've had over the last 2 to 3 months dealing with this pandemic, what are some of the common themes that you can relate or share in your experiences that you're seeing some of the more successful organizations implementing or integrating into their organizations? Can you share some of those thoughts with us?
Oh, sure. I think that there's an old saying: "Culture trumps strategy all day long." And I think if you look at the culture of any franchise company, you get big clues as to where their success comes from on the successful ones, anyway. And it's driven first and foremost, in my experience, by a commitment on the part of the franchise leadership to put the success of their franchisees first and foremost. If the franchisees are doing well, pretty much everything works great in franchising. And if they're not, pretty much nothing works great. So
Right.
that's the first test. I think the second one is it's a relationship business. And good franchisors build strong relationships. There's a lot of trust. The franchisees know that they care about them, and they prove that not only through their words but through their actions. And so when it comes time to weather something like what we're dealing with right now, I have a son that owns a whole bunch of solar salon studios, and this
Hmm.
crisis broke, and he was out of the country, and all his places got shut down. And they
Right.
were out of business, just shut down, government order, and then you rely on your franchisor to step up quickly and help formulate plans and figure out how to do it, and put the interests of those franchisees first. And I think the third factor is a strong leadership team. When we look at franchisors to come into our inventory, we're looking at that probably more than any other factor. And when somebody comes to us like you guys did years ago, and you've got you and Todd and other people that we know that have built
Hmm.
other franchise systems and have a lot of experience, that have been successful because they have the right values, we're very interested in working with people like that when they come up with a new concept, because it takes so much of the risk out of it for us. And so strong leadership, a strong culture, I think, and then that prioritizing the franchisee success. You get those things in a franchise system, and it's going to work.
Yeah.
You got to have a good prototype, but it doesn't make any difference if it's massages or haircuts or fitness or anything else. If you've got those factors, it's going to work.
And same thing, same philosophy on our end, right? We build, the success of this organization on the backs of our franchisees, and we're very critical. We like you need to bring in great franchisors. We need to bring in great franchisees. So I can completely understand where you're coming from there. I couldn't wait to ask you this question, Jeff, just because you've, well, I don't know many people that have accomplished what you have. I'm not blowing smoke here, but you've just had this really a storied career. When you look at that conversation and where this business starts, right? You've got, I think, close to 100 consultants. Is that pretty close? Somewhere in that vicinity. And all those consultants, their relationship with the client starts with the consultation, right? That first consult. So this conversation has to be different, right? Than you've experienced since back in the 80s when you started your career. So how has that changed? And how does that conversation look today if you're the consultant sitting in the chair with a new client?
Well, I'll give you two answers to that question. Another great question. The first one is the consultation hasn't changed a bit. However, that's not the first conversation we have with a candidate. There's usually one or two conversations that come before that. And those one or two sort of preparation short conversations have changed pretty dramatically.
Okay.
If you think about the candidates that we deal with, there's really sort of three buckets. There, in one bucket are people who come to us and they know they're going to get a franchise, and they're going to get it as soon as they find something that they like and the timing's right for them. Let's go. And then there's a second group that they're never going to get a franchise. They're just, they're kidding themselves, and for whatever reason, it's just not going to work out, and it's never going to work out. But then the third bucket are people who they're going to get a franchise when the timing is right. When they're able to overcome fear and anxiety and say, okay, this is the right decision for me at this point in time, and then they can move forward. And in that middle bucket, that's the place where fear and anxiety in the marketplace, when it's spiking, could cause them to maybe decide the time isn't quite right now. And so we've had a lot of preliminary conversations with people saying, tell me how you're dealing with the chaos. Are you waking up in the middle of the night worried about this or that or the other thing? And just to try and get a level for where they feel most comfortable. In a lot of those cases, really since the beginning of or the middle of March anyway, so for the last 6 or 7 weeks, our consultants report that they've had a lot of conversations with people that say, I am so excited about getting into this, but you're right. If I waited another month or two, I think I'd be far more comfortable. And we're not going anyplace. For us, it's perfectly fine. If okay, then let's just wait 60 days. I'll call you every couple of weeks and touch base, but we won't pick up the ball and start running with it until you're comfortable moving forward, because it wouldn't do any good to run them through a consultation and send them out to franchisors if that's the dominant thought in their mind is the fear. Now, the consultation, on the other hand, versus those preliminary calls, that's all about trying to determine what people want to accomplish through business ownership. What are their goals? What are they trying to do? And to give us clues in terms of identifying businesses that might be able to get them where they want to go. And so that we can do a good job of matching people up. And 1 out of every 6 people that we send out to franchisors ends up getting a franchise. So the success rate is very, very high, but it's because we've spent hours talking to them about their skills and about their resources that they've got available, and most importantly, simple questions like, if you get a franchise and it's completely successful and you get everything you want, 3 years from now, what's your life look like? What do you want that picture to be? Because then we know the companies like Hand and Stone well enough that when they describe a picture to us, we can go, okay, I know a great company that matches that picture perfectly. When you start talking to their franchisees that have been there 3 or 4 years, you're going to hear them describe their life as the same thing you just outlined, or not. And if it's not, then we'll send them someplace else. So the business is the same from a relationship standpoint. And this is all about relationships, not just between you and the consultants and their prospect, but frankly, between all of us working together to try and find good endings for people, happy endings where people succeed and everything works out. And I don't know of any business where you get the level of satisfaction that we get when you can accomplish that. You really have added some value to somebody's life.
Yeah. And I love what you said about, talking about the hard work is way before you get to the decision, right? Because the hard work is fitting that person who's going to invest their life savings into, whatever XYZ corporation. For me, I think it brings back a memory, and it kind of ties you and I together with this and what I'm going to say, because there's a little blonde-haired guy with a lisp that was a football coach. You'll appreciate this because he coached at a place that I dearly love at the University of Notre Dame, and he also coached at Minnesota. His name is Lou Holtz. Yeah. And he always says, they always talk about game day. He said, game day is the easy part. He says, and they talk about the pressure, and they asked him about that pressure of game day. He said, man, the pressure comes from a lack of preparation going into game day. That's where the pressure comes. So I appreciate your points, like always, in every conversation that we have. And I look forward to the stories that you always tell to kick off the conference. I'll look forward to that in a virtual setting this time, but always learn something from you, Jeff, and just appreciate your friendship and all the friendships that you've been kind of the vehicle to connect us all. And we appreciate that. And Nicole, thank you for setting everything up today. But that concludes this session in the treatment room. And Jeff, thank you very much for taking the time out. We are so appreciative of it. And we will talk to you here a little bit down the road.
Great. Thank you, Bob.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Nicole.